Hey, we're George and James, and today we're getting pretentious with Thom Yorke's ANIMA. Actually, this is one. I think, do you have that on vinyl as well, James?
I do, yeah.
It is a bloody gorgeous vinyl as well.
It is.
Is it the same artist that does all the stuff for...
It is, it's Stanley Donwood.
Yeah, because it also comes with two little... oh, if I can get it out. Like, even the two little inserts with the vinyls in come with all of his gorgeous artwork, pencil sketches. Sorry for the people listening to the podcast, but go over to YouTube and watch it and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about.
So, how are you, George?
I'm good. I'm good.
Eagle-eyed viewers will notice that we're recording this on the same day as the last episode.
Yeah, we are wearing the exact same clothes.
Yeah. Did not think that through. So, what can you do?
Don't worry, next time we'll hide that with some wardrobe changes.
Yeah. And you will know... You'll be none the wiser.
No.
Yeah, how are you? What have you been listening to, George, or watching recently?
Ooh, what have I been watching? I did recently watch Umbrella Academy, which you were saying your partner's watched.
Yes. Well, I'm not sure if she's finished all of it, although probably would have finished it tonight by the time I've got back.
Yeah. It's not bad, it's not good. It's a refreshing look on superheroes, I guess, and it's very weird. Like, it's very...
It looks very
abstract.
stylized from what I've seen. I haven't really seen much other than I've seen a lot of the visuals because I've had my headphones in listening to something else.
Yeah.
But seen like a lot of the visuals, and it does look quite stylized.
It's also got, I want to say his name's Nathan something. Can't remember his exact name, but the guy who was in Misfits.
Okay, yeah.
Is the guy who can't die.
Yeah.
Which is funny because he also talks to the dead in this one. So
okay.
It's interesting. But yeah, no, I really like him. He's got a really good comedic timing.
Is it a bit like... Strikes me as a little bit like a more zany... Do you remember Heroes? Back in the day?
A little bit, but more like it's been dragged straight out of a graphic novel.
Yeah.
Because it has, but...
That's what I mean when I say like zany, because it...
Yeah.
There's definitely like...
It's got that
quirkiness.
slight Scott Pilgrim vibe.
Yeah. There's a weird noise going on outside.
Yeah, I've just noticed that there's some sort of bee in after that. Or wasp. Better not be a wasp.
This will make an interesting addition to the... George is now currently looking for a wasp. While he's doing that, I'm going to tell you all to hit subscribe on this video on YouTube, and also hit subscribe on whatever podcast platform you're listening on. Or if you're not subscribed on any podcast platform, the link, and you're watching this on YouTube, the link is in the description below to Apple Podcasts and to Spotify. So if you want to go and follow us there, subscribe there, that's all very much appreciated. George is still struggling away with this.
Yeah, he's really struggling.
George, the other day, got stung by a wasp on the inside of his lip. I won't put the photo in the video of this podcast because it was actually quite unpleasant. But George's face swelled up massively, which is why we couldn't record the other day. We were supposed to record the other day, but he couldn't. Did George just kill the wasp?
I don't know, there was a crunch noise.
There was a crunch noise.
Apologies, did not mean for that to happen. I do not usually try and kill animals.
George has a dog, so he's an animal lover, anything.
And he's coming back.
And he's coming back, and he's not the light.
Oh dear. Is it still good?
I might just move that a little bit.
How do you want it?
Well, you sit back down because you're...
Sorry, you're probably about to get a load of jump cuts here. Just...
It's all gone tits. Maybe not, maybe I'll keep it in. Who knows?
This is for the outtakes reel.
I can't really remember how I had it, to be honest. So I'm just going to try and... That'll do.
I mean, if there's inconsistencies, you've just witnessed what happened. Unless you're listening to the podcast. And it won't make any difference for you. So
don't worry about it.
don't worry. The lighting's off, but the audio's okay.
Hopefully. Now,
Yes.
you Umbrella Academy.
Yeah, it's alright. It's an easy watch. It's superheroes. It's funny.
Yeah.
It's a little bit dark. Like,
Are you bored of superheroes yet?
yeah,
I am.
yeah.
Which is
like,
the main reason I haven't watched the Umbrella Academy, I'm going to be honest.
It is different from most superhero films.
I'm sure it is. I just... At this point, I'm sort of so worn out with superheroes and superpowers. Like, there used to be a novelty, those kind of films. And, like, I remember when...
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I don't really count, like, Chris Nolan's Batman films in that sort of category.
Well, they're not so much a super... They're a good film that so happens to have superheroes.
But I remember, like, around the time, like, the Marvel stuff started happening and Iron Man and Thor,
Hulk,
Captain America, and then the Avengers. I was actually, like, I was pretty keen. Like, I watched all of those and, like, watched the build up to the Avengers and all that kind of stuff and kept the tabs on it. Now there's so much that it just feels a bit like I can't anymore. Like, can't keep up with it.
Yeah.
And, like, maybe not can't. I just don't want to.
I tell you what I at least don't want is just another origin story. I'm done with origin stories.
I mean, that is a good thing about this Marvel universe, like, carrying on.
You don't keep getting origin stories.
You don't get the same Spider-Man film every 2 seconds.
They should have just stopped Endgame.
See, I haven't even seen that. So.
It's really good. Like, go watch it if you haven't, but...
Should have been the end.
Yeah.
I mean, it's called Endgame.
Exactly. It would have worked very well. I was about to say some things about it, but if you haven't watched it, you don't want to ruin it, so we'll leave that. Yeah. I feel like
I've seen all the spoilers by this point.
Yeah, I feel like it's still not long enough that we could... It's not like saying Darth Vader is Luke's father. Like, there's not been that much time.
Yeah.
Needs more time. Although I feel like you can still ruin Game of Thrones now and it doesn't matter because they ruined it themselves. Anyway.
I'm so glad I did not watch...
The whole lot.
Because now... Because everyone got disappointed. Like, most people, I think, have said they were disappointed by the ending. And I'm so glad that I didn't bother.
Yeah.
Because I can't imagine what it would have been like to just get into the end and it be disappointing like that. Yeah. I've been quite lucky because I haven't really... There's not been many series like that for me where the ending has sort of ruined it because... Like, I wasn't really into Lost. I think I saw the first series, which was... The first series itself was...
We were almost too young.
Pretty good, but...
To really get into that.
Yeah. But that, I think, for a lot of people, that ended badly. Life on Mars ended well, which was...
Yeah.
Really good.
I still haven't watched Life on Mars, actually. I've, seen bits.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't recommend Ashes to Ashes, although if you want, like, the complete...
Oh, they're part of the same thing.
Yeah, it's like a sequel in a way.
In all fairness, it was only until like maybe a week ago I realised Frasier spin-off for Cheers.
Yeah.
I was like, watch part of an episode of Cheers. No. Not putting my time into that. I can't, maybe it gets better, but...
Frasier's great, though.
Frasier is... Never liked it as when I was younger.
No, I think it's hard to get into it. It's definitely more of an adult.
You have to have
program.
Lived in your own flat and had a shitty job to fully understand the pains of Frasier.
But Frasier's, probably, and I think it's slightly underappreciated.
I think so. I do really like it though. It took me a long time though because it used to be on before Everybody Loves Raymond or something. Yeah.
And when you're younger, Everybody Loves Raymond.
Much easier.
It's easier to digest. What have I been watching recently? I am
or listening to.
I mean, I've been really struggling actually, like the whole of lockdown, to actually watch stuff. Because like even stuff like that I would normally like devour, like The Mandalorian.
Yeah. Have you
being a
finished that
massive-
yet?
I still haven't finished it. And it's just because I'm really struggling to watch stuff at the moment.
Plus, you have just bought a new vinyl player, so you are basically
I've been
going through
listening.
your whole
I've been
vinyl
listening to a lot
collection.
of stuff.
Like me asking what you've been listening to, that's like 20 different albums, I reckon.
Yeah, because I've been rediscovering albums that I've like the one I texted you about the other day, the Mogwai,
Mogwai.
the latest Mogwai album. I'd forgotten how good that is. I was like, oh yeah, there's a reason I bought the deluxe version of this.
Yeah. It is actually a really good album.
And it's actually a really good album.
Mogwai, like, I've always, like, when an album comes out, I'll listen to it and go, oh, that was quite good.
Yeah.
And then I always forget that they exist.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, I can't remember if I actually bought tickets or not. I'm pretty sure I'm seeing them next year at the Roundhouse. Because I saw the tickets, I got like an email from, I don't know, Live Nation or whatever, and it was like Mogwai for next year, and I was like, oh, well, I'll book this now because I'll forget about Mogwai otherwise.
Yeah.
And I think actually they'd be really good live.
Yeah,
to go and
probably.
see. Yeah, I've been re-listening to a lot of stuff.
Well, I tell you what, we did just rewatch
Yes.
the Anima on Netflix.
Yes.
I forget the name of the director. What's
Paul Thomas Anderson,
Paul Thomas Anderson.
who's done a lot of work with Radiohead over the years, but obviously also very prolific film director.
Did he do the what's the video that's backwards and goes through all the doors?
Daydreaming, yeah, he did
that was
one.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I remember that one. Well,
and it's actually got a similar vibe actually to the Anima film, hasn't it? So if you don't know, so Thom Yorke's Anima, released last year. Just before it was released, I want to say it was almost like a little teaser for the album. Wasn't
yeah, because it's only 3 tracks.
There's like a 15-minute short film on Netflix, directed by Paul Thomas Anderson, starring Thom Yorke.
Which also, might I say, first form of like music video
On Netflix.
on Netflix.
Yeah.
Because there's the live videos, but
Yeah.
it's a music video, but just prolonged. Which I did have obviously lockdown, COVID, all of this stuff, but like I really expected more of this to happen shortly after. I would really have my hopes up for like more bands to be like, oh, let's do some stuff on Netflix.
Weird, interesting shit. Yeah. Yeah, and it hasn't really materialized. I could see it, but I could see, someone like we talked before about because of the internet and Childish Gambino. I could see
if
him
anyone's
doing
going to do
something
it,
like
yeah,
that.
Donald
Then-
Glover.
And I still haven't watched Guava Island on Amazon Prime yet, but I think that's sort of a film music video thing.
For whatever reason, well, actually no, not for whatever reason, for the reason that Amazon Prime, anyone can put stuff on there.
Yes.
It's much easier. Like, for me, it's not as impressive. Because we could make a video and stick it up on Amazon Prime if we wanted to. Netflix, on the other hand,
It's a bit more tricky.
yeah, there's a board meeting at some point there.
Yeah.
I tell you what would be interesting.
There is some shit on Netflix.
There is,
Sorry,
there is some shit on Netflix.
Didn't you watch something about... Hang on, sorry.
Yeah, tangent.
Didn't you watch something about killer nuns or something? What was it? A nun assassin.
No, I think it was literally called Killer Nuns. Yeah.
What was it called?
Have we not
think
discussed that
it was
on here
called-
yet? No, we haven't.
It wasn't called
Nuns.
Killer Nuns. It was called Nun Assassin or something.
No.
What was it?
Alright, let's get Netflix up. Actually, no, I'm pretty...
Because it introduced you to...
Killer... No, maybe not.
Nun...
Netflix.
Warrior Nun.
Warrior Nun.
Because
Yeah.
you discovered an artist through that, didn't you?
I did. Oh, what's her name?
This is good. This is good podcasting. You've had George trying to tackle a bee.
Yeah.
You've had us stumble over. We have been drinking a little bit, so...
A little bit.
But not that much.
in all fairness, so this isn't anything to do with what I watched.
And it's very hot.
Yeah, it's still 30. I think it's 30 degrees. Oh no, it's still 32 degrees. And it's
like
8:15. You know what? I can't remember her name.
I'll
she's
put
Brazilian.
the name here.
Yeah. We'll put
Look.
the album and the song title.
There. So if
somewhere,
you're listening
yeah.
to this, you need to go to YouTube
Because we don't want to. I don't want to sit here and waste your time.
and find out what it is. Sorry, you were saying.
I was saying something unrelated as well is our neighbours who are literally just over there introduced me to Cocoa Canoe, which is a coconut rum. This isn't an advert sponsor, by the way, but it just
But if they do want to sponsor us,
yeah
get in touch.
tastes great, just straight.
Right.
And it's a 40% sort of spirit.
Yeah.
I can just sit there and sip at it.
Nice.
Or do you want to try a little bit of my coconut rum? I would sip it, but
Oh, that is nice.
that's straight rum.
That's
That's
very nice.
40.
though.
I think it's 42%.
That goes down like a fucking tree.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to say it now. So the camera just died for those watching. But that's fine. We'll get back to what we're talking about in a minute. But Cocoa Canoe,
Good.
I want you to sponsor the podcast so that you could give us free rum.
It's good rum.
So, I thought you were going to say something specific about Thom Yorke.
No, I wasn't going to say something about Thom Yorke. I was going to say it would be interesting to have directors who do music videos having almost a section, like if you type in Studio Ghibli, it comes up with all the Studio Ghibli films. Typing in music video directors, and it comes up with all their music videos. And then having them making films for music, and like having little categories for music videos on Netflix.
Yeah, because you like look at someone like Joseph Kahn who does all of the sort of a lot of the Taylor Swift stuff. You think like,
I wonder what else he does.
yeah, and like what? Because I haven't really like digged into his career or anything. He may have done lots of stuff, but like lots of films or whatever. But I wonder what like a longer Joseph Kahn experience would be like.
Yeah, because you always either have to go to their website and it's like embedded on the website, or it's on Vimeo. I don't know about you. Vimeo's stupid. Like, what is the need for Vimeo?
Now, see, Vimeo...
Because I swear all film-related people...
Yeah, I had Vimeo for a while.
Yeah, everyone who does film or makes film or is part
It's
of
on
film
Vimeo.
does Vimeo. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why? Why?
It's
why
like
are we
a more
not
pretentious
using that
YouTube.
then? But then why are we not using that all the time?
Well, I don't know, because I feel like we should really, because there is a lot of good stuff on Vimeo.
But is it just because people don't put it on YouTube? Like, is there something about the functionality of Vimeo that's better than YouTube? Because for me, Vimeo is not user-friendly.
I don't even know. Yeah, I don't think it's really anything functionality-wise. I mean, there is something quite cool on Vimeo, which I don't know if you can do on YouTube, or I've never been able to. You can, like, replace a video file. So if you... But, like, keep all your views and stuff. Can you do that on YouTube now?
Yeah, I think you have to have...
You couldn't for a while.
I think you do have to have over, like, 300 subscribers or something to be able to do that.
But then you are also limited on Vimeo. You have to like pay to upload more than a certain amount of stuff.
What?
Yeah.
That's weird.
But what I will say about Vimeo is like, I don't really know why film people use Vimeo more, but there was definitely a perception at film school that like, we look down on YouTube. Don't put your film on YouTube. Put it on Vimeo.
I mean, there might be some sort of argument for compression rates between YouTube.
There probably is, but like...
But it's like saying, listening to something on Tidal or Spotify. Like, I'm a musician, I still have Spotify. Like,
yeah. I mean, I've got them on both at this point. Like, I just put stuff on both and you just...
Fingers in the pies.
Well, yeah, like, also more people are on YouTube. So...
Putting stuff... If I see like a director or something only put their stuff on Vimeo, it's like, are you purposely trying to be so artistic that you want to close yourself off for a massive vein of like viewers?
Now that leads on to an interesting conversation, because I feel like Thom Yorke...
It does do that.
But then, does it? Because, so, I would say Thom Yorke and Radiohead, even though Radiohead at this point are quite a mainstream in terms of like popularity, they're a massive band, right?
Yeah.
You think of early noughties, 90s.
They're there with like...
bands. You think Coldplay, Radiohead, Oasis. You know, it's those kind of bands that dominated like the Pyramid stage at Glastonbury, and all that kind of stuff, right? But there is also quite a perception about Radiohead that the fans are snooty towards other music.
I mean, in all fairness, I definitely was slightly on edge about doing an album by Radiohead or anyone to do with Radiohead because their fans are so pretentious.
Yeah. And I think often people don't give Radiohead a chance. People who have not listened to them before won't give them a chance because of that perception around them.
Yeah.
Whereas actually, and for a long time, my dad actually was like really quite like just didn't get Radiohead, didn't like them, and then it was only until I basically made him sit down and listen to Moonshaped Pool from start to finish that he was like, which is probably one of their more accessible albums, but that he then started to really appreciate them and was like, oh, actually, they're much better than I thought, and actually much more accessible in a way than I thought they were. Now, Thom Yorke's work, his solo work, is probably on the more
pretentious side,
less accessible side. Pretentious side. But then, interesting that he then puts his film on Netflix, which is very much like a open...
It's a very mainstream thing to do. It's quite a power play.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, Beyonce didn't do that.
And it was quite like it was front page Netflix. Yeah. Like, they
pushed it. Yeah, it's weird because Thom Yorke and in-line Radiohead as well has managed to become a mainstream rock idol, like you could kind of sway, but he's then used that to just do kind of what he maybe wanted to do all along, which was just be really artsy and out there. But he just went the other way about it. Yeah. Rather than being artsy and then slowly being broken down by the industry and becoming more kind of Michael Bay-esque, he was gone the opposite direction. And it means that people actually listen to his really artsy, kind of limit-pushing music. But however pretentious this album is, or however artsy or inaccessible, it is good. It is very good. And actually, I think on the surface may not seem very accessible, but it's actually probably his most accessible piece of work.
Yeah. And I think you could play Dawn Chorus, which I will endlessly go on about. Yeah. As I think it's one of my favourite songs ever.
It's stunning.
And it's so simple.
Well, you could have a song like Dawn Chorus on Taylor Swift's latest album. Like, it's got that emotional context. Like, it's a song that could work in any genre, really. It just so happens that he's written it.
And when I first heard it, I don't know what it was, but it did make me quite... It actually, like, brought on an emotional reaction. And I'm not even sure I could tell you what the song is necessarily about.
No,
because I've never really like broken down the lyrics or anything like that. But
some songs are like that. Like, it's so surface level emotional. Like, it just taps into almost like a raw instinct of emotion. You almost don't look into it that much.
Yeah, but it's weird as well because it's not necessarily on the surface, or particularly like... well, I think it's emotional in the sense of like it doesn't feel like an emotional song in terms of like an Adele song where she's like really like pushing out all this emotion. It's like it almost feels like you're listening to like a broken man almost talk to you.
Yeah, it's like hearing the thoughts of that lonely man at the back of the bar. Just like he's lived a life, but he has no more energy to kind of express how he feels, and you're just experiencing that, which maybe I suppose you could fit into the kind of Dawn Chorus. It's like that as the sun and time is coming down, it's the chorus of that. It's that
I always think of, I don't know if it's because of the visual element of the start of Anima as him on a tube train, but I do always think of sort of on a commute, that kind of person who's doing a job they hate, commuting to it back and forth every day, and it's just that sort of broken down, like there's no energy anymore. They're just sort of going through the motions kind of thing. Is how I.
Well, actually, what does anima mean? Because I get that feeling off the whole album. Because anima is a word, isn't it?
Yes.
And anima, the feminine part of a man's personality, or the part of the psyche which is directed inwards, in touch with the subconscious.
That's very appropriate.
Yeah.
That's actually quite interesting as well, because when we're watching the video on Netflix, I noticed that when they're walking through the tube station, in the background there's a poster, and on the poster it says, "What do your dreams mean?" And so that idea of the part of the psyche which is directed inwards, in touch with the subconscious, is quite interesting. That they've like layered that throughout that video, and it does feel like a bit of a dream, that whole video anyway.
Yeah, I'd never realised also that the feminine part of a man's personality actually had a word. And it's interesting because like it's quite a label really of like, where do you draw the line between what's a masculine and a feminine personality?
Yeah.
Like it must be quite prominent if it has a word. Like maybe not so much now, but to think of going up to someone and being like, "Oh, you've been acting very anima today," like saying that you've been overly feminine with your personality traits today compared to normal. It's quite. I don't know how much that necessarily reflects on the album itself. That, like, you could argue with the film that that lead female role that's playing alongside him is that
another part of himself. Yeah.
Like he's constantly trying to dance and juggle.
And they do like sort of, there are points where they mirror each other.
Yeah.
And that's where they look most happy, as well. They're moving in sync with each other.
During Dawn Chorus, where they're doing, like, they keep doing that thing where they're trying to look into each other's eyes. Is that them trying to understand each other and trying to be like, can I accept this effeminate part of myself and look you in the eyes? I'd be curious to know if that's something that was
thought about on the
because that is the top definition that comes up on Google. But I do like definitely the part of the psyche which is directed inwards, in touch with the subconscious. And I think with a load of connectives. With lockdown, anima has definitely become more common. We've had a lot more time to be in touch with our subconscious.
Yeah.
Like, our subconscious is almost not our subconscious anymore during lockdown anyway, because you're living with yourself so much. Everything that has been sub-level, that's been suppressed by work and day-to-day life, you've now had all this time, it's all surfaced. And
I also think it comes back to like, I know it's a perception that people are trying to change now, but it's still endemic throughout our society in terms of like the way men deal with mental health and the way women deal with mental health is quite different, and that like it's seen as like a feminine trait to talk about your feelings or and like I know, like, just for myself, I don't really talk about my own feelings, do I? Like, generally, and I don't think consciously I'm doing it because I'm like, oh, men don't do
I
that.
must protect myself.
Yeah,
or whatever.
but I do think there's something interesting about that as well, in terms of the album is quite exposing.
Yeah.
In that way, it's a very, And I think actually, to be fair, like Thom Yorke has always been a bit like that.
Yeah.
But to then put the Anima name onto that is quite interesting in terms of...
well, I suppose you could say this album is Thom Yorke reflecting on how Anima he's been throughout his whole career and life. And it's only now at this point where he can fully accept who he is and express exactly how he feels, rather than trying to use metaphors and kind of beat around the bush. He's actually saying, this is me. And it goes with the kind of artwork and the film itself. Very simple, very to the core.
I also think the music itself is pretty simple when you listen to it.
Stripped back.
Yeah, I mean it's electronic based, but it's still very...
It's almost acoustic though.
Yeah.
It's the way he's used synths is by trying to create acoustic sounds that feel natural but are also unrelated to a reality that you live in a way, because they still feel organic, but you don't go, oh, that's a nice cello or that's a nice piano.
And that comes across visually in the film as well. It's definitely a world you recognise, and it's sort of got an Eastern European sort of vibe to it, but it's also got that slight sci-fi tinge to it.
Ageless but futuristic.
Everyone's wearing sort of boiler suits.
Yeah.
And obviously like the synchronized dancing and all that kind of stuff adds to the sort of otherworldly nature of it.
Very nondescript.
Yeah, there's not really a time period to that film.
Yeah.
It's quite a timeless piece of film, but equally it's still very grounded in like what we know, and the fact that it starts on a tube train. It does get a slightly more abstract as it goes along, but it starts in a tube train, ends in a street, which are two obviously very recognizable, and sort of in the middle almost goes into his subconscious and travels through his dreams and that kind of thing. It's almost like you're looking at like almost a day in the life of Thom Yorke in that kind of like the commute. Then like he's fallen asleep on the train and now he's dreaming, and now he's got off the train and he's walking home. It's that kind of like
it's that back and forth within your own head, and the kind of things that you avoid talking about necessarily or avoid confronting. And the whole thing, he's kind of also trying to run away from it as well a little bit. Yeah, we got quite far into this Anima thing. I'm surprised I never actually looked it up, because I always thought the name was great. But it is also, so relatable. Also, on another note, he does use our favourite font on the cover.
And the image of the falling man on the front of Anima, it's almost like he's falling into his subconscious, you know what I mean? It's like there's a lot to unpack there, I think. Interesting here, it says Thom Yorke wrote Anima following a period of writer's block and anxiety.
So probably kind of feeling very lost in his own subconscious, and because the subconscious can be very freeing, but also entirely intoxicating, and if you get too lost in your own subconscious, sometimes it can feel like you're over-analysing yourself and you're prejudging yourself before anyone else does.
This is interesting as well. It says that he was inspired by seeing a flying lotus improvising live with loops, and they divert it through live performances, and then he would send Nigel Godrich like really long unfinished tracks, and then Godrich would like edit them down into like shorter samples and loops, which is quite interesting because we're talking about how it's an electronic album that feels still very much grounded, and that makes sense. If he's just sort of performing these live long pieces himself, then he's just expressing his emotions through these like electronic samples he's creating, and then he's got Nigel Godrich to then like...
Well, what he's done is built a big solid slab of marble from the ground up, and then because like marble on its own is beautiful, and then he's taken it to somebody and gone, this is me, dig out my subconscious from this slab of marble. And that's why it still feels so organic, because he has built this beautiful rock. He's just needed to get somebody else, and he's then developed on it to sculpt what he sees as himself and his subconscious from this organic thing that he's built.
I want to see if it says anything in here about the short film.
Yeah, it does.
And just about the way it was made, like what the idea behind it was.
I do find it, like, do you think it was a decision to not do all of the tracks? Or is it...
Or a budget thing.
Yeah, is it a budget thing or is it a creative decision?
I mean, I hope it's a creative decision. It's hard to tell, really, to be fair. This is interesting. It says Thom Yorke came from a concept from Yorke about workers whose bodies don't work anymore and are being pushed by an invisible force, which is sort of coming back to what I was saying about how, you know, when you're like working a job you hate and you're just doing that commute and your body's just sort of work. It's just like automatic and you don't. Yeah, I mean, it's very well made. If you've not watched it, would you? Okay, here's a question: would you recommend someone listen to the album first or watch the video first? Because I watched the video first and then listen to the album.
I don't know, because when watching it first, maybe if you don't know who Thom Yorke is and you don't know what he looks like or anything, watch it first. But I found myself when watching it, I definitely had a slight preconception seeing his face and being like, oh, it's a Thom Yorke thing. Whereas listening to it, I think I actually listened to it first and was just the production and it was so far away from anything I'd heard from Radiohead or Thom Yorke. It was like, okay, all my preconceptions are out the window.
Yeah.
So if you do know who Thom Yorke is or Radiohead,
just listen to the album.
Just listen to it, because it is a different experience from anything you've heard him do so far.
Yeah. Yeah, I probably agree. Because it's interesting with the National film that we talked about. I'm not sure which one you would say to listen to or watch first, but I think...
I'd say either is fine.
But I think the
film is more digestible.
Yeah, and I also think that the National album is made better by the short film.
Yes.
Whereas I don't think you could necessarily say this for that, and it doesn't feel as much intertwined as that National record does with...
Yeah.
Probably because they were making the film and the album at the same time, and they were sort of inspired by each other in a way. Whereas this definitely feels more like a extended music video.
Yeah, it's a glorified music video
that exists.
Also, like the video feels just like one point of view of how the album feels as well. Because the album is very open. It is quite abstract and open in the way it's written.
Yeah.
Like listening to the lyrics and the music, there's nothing that really necessarily drags me or puts it in a box for me emotively.
Yeah.
But the video still makes sense, but I can still listen to the album and feel a completely different way and have completely different imagery. But it is also a fantastic video.
Oh yeah, like there's no doubt that
directing, the filming.
It's very well made, and they clearly had a lovely budget for it and were able to sort of, I mean, I think they built like a platform for it, etc. So there's this point where it looks like they're walking up a platform, like walking uphill, but the everything's still level. So they're like leaning forward in an almost like Michael Jackson way of like leaning forward.
Yeah. Which is just life. Like there's this invisible hill that you're constantly struggling up and nobody really perceives it, but you're all on it. like it is now. Everyone's on it, but some people are managing to go up and down with like it's not there.
Yeah.
But then sometimes you just lose control and you're the Thom Yorke just running around trying to figure out how you get up this thing. Yeah, just so well thought out and put together. I don't know if it says anything about how long the process of this was, because I feel like it could be one of two ways, really. It kind of sounds like it could have been developed over like 3 or 4 years. Also sounds like it could have been done in like 2 months.
Yeah.
Because it definitely captures something, but it's also like the production, the image, all of the artwork, the film is all so perfectly knitted together. It feels like it couldn't happen so almost accidentally over 2 months.
Yeah, it feels. I mean, I would probably say this is a rare example of an album being pretty much perfect. Like,
yeah,
there's not a lot.
Because it doesn't, and especially for Thom Yorke, there's no fancy theory that like stands out at all. There's no over the top lyricism or poetry. It's just very straight, honest, pure.
Yeah.
It doesn't distract from its own goal.
Yeah.
Which is quite rare in an album. And like, yeah, again, especially with the artwork, the film, it could have all been a lot more complex or a lot more over the top, but it wasn't. Like, even the fact that the vinyl just comes in a really, it's a cardboard sleeve.
Which apparently was nominated for a Grammy, this packaging.
But it's just literally one piece of cardboard and it's folded over and glued on these edges. Like, very raw.
Yeah.
Almost quite imperfect, really. Like, if anyone else released this on like just any old random album, you'd be a bit disappointed if it turned up.
Yeah, but actually it's really lovely and makes...
It's like, oh no, this is exactly how this should be, and it's all rough and like proper cardboard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's almost as if, I mean, it obviously hasn't, because it would be a nightmare, but it's almost as if Stanley Donovan has sketched directly onto your piece of cardboard.
However it's been printed on, it's been... the tone of it is perfect. I mean, again, I'd be interested to know how much time was put into such an effortless looking packaging. Because it looks effortless. But the fact that it looks effortless must have meant there was so much time poured into it.
Any closing thoughts on this album?
Go listen to it.
Yeah.
Go watch it. And probably buy it on vinyl as well.
Yeah.
Like, I think this will be an album that will keep, maybe not for the next 5 years, but I think in the next 10, 20 years, it'll be an album that slowly crops its way up, like the top 100 albums of 2000.
It's already like, I got a new sound system recently, and I got this record just before getting my new sound system. I thought I'll wait until I get it and play it on, like, all fresh and new on it. But it's already probably one of my most played records on my new. Yeah. Because it just sounds... There's something so crisp about the sound of this album that just... Everything really feels like it's in the right place.
Yeah.
And there's no muddiness at all, which I found, like, with some of Thom Yorke's earlier work, like solo work, there was almost a slightly muddled feeling in some of the production, in terms of, like, he had a lot going on, and sort of it felt like he just threw a lot of ideas at things. Yeah. And this feels so nicely refined, and it'd be interesting to hear what, like, the original
demos and stuff, or like those 10-minute, 20-minute,
whether they're like quite busy and whether they've like stripped it back.
Yeah.
But there's something, like you said, I think, almost acoustic about this album, because it's just so...
I would almost, if I was to compare it, like, the feeling it gives me is how I feel. Have you ever seen much of Henry Moore's sculpture work? That it doesn't necessarily resemble anything, but it can also resemble everything, and it's so natural. It's always very smooth. It's not in your face. It's not abrasive. It's not too abstract, but it's also quite pure and wholesome. You could pick it up as a pebble on the beach and you'd just think it's a happy accident.
Yeah.
But also you'd feel it and be like, no, this has been perfectly crafted. But is it crafted by nature or is it crafted by man? And it's like, it sits in that barrier that is so hard to get with a finely crafted album made by a person. Well done, Thom Yorke.
And on that bombshell, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much for watching and listening. If you like what you saw and heard, then please, it's weird me now having to add like scene and what you've watched onto the thing. Because I had my own little pattern now, so sort of I have to adapt it.
You've all jumbled.
If you like what you saw and heard, then please hit subscribe on YouTube. Hit subscribe over on whatever podcast platform.
Ding the bell.
That you may be listening to. Or ding the bell so you know when we upload. And follow us on their social media handles and accounts and all that that's in the description of this podcast. And then join us next time when we will be talking about George.
We're going to do Leanne LaHavis's self-titled Leanne LaHavis. Go check it out.
Listen. Let us know what you think about the album. And join us next time. Until then, thank you for watching and listening.
Goodbye.